Welcome to The Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Real, taking time out of your day to come watch this episode. I really appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe for me. I'd really appreciate that as well. That's the best way you can support this channel and help me grow my content and grow this channel to where I'd like it to be. Everybody hit the like button for me on the way in on this video today. That also helps promote this video more in the algorithms, helps grow this channel more as well. Please share this content. I would really appreciate that. My guests would as well. If you would please share this episode with someone you know that maybe is interested in the topic we're talking about today. Please leave a comment below as well. We'd love to hear your guys' feedback. You can interact with myself and the guest on the panel and the live chat as well. Whatever we're talking about, just leave a comment there in the live chat. Pop in and say hello. We'll put it on the screen for you. And yeah, without further ado, let's get to the show. Welcome back to The Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman. Happy Monday to you guys. Hope you guys are having a good day. If you're new here, like I said, please hit the like, subscribe, and share button. I'd really appreciate that on the way in here. Shout out to man Humble. He said salute to my brother Joe. Salute to you, Humble. All love, brother. Hope you're having a good day. I see you're working again on your Instagram. Keep up the great work, brother. And yeah, I am gonna get into some Brown stuff here at the end of the show. Briefly, Shedeur Sanders had one heck of a day today in training camp, so I'm gonna get into that. I think he was 9 of 9 today. A couple touchdowns, threw some great passes, threw an incredible pass to the back of the end zone. We're gonna get into that here. What that could be with the quarterback battle, but today's show, I want to talk about the main topic, which is what everybody's talking about today. Shedeur's father, Deion Sanders. As you can see there, God is so good. So when I woke up today, I saw some news. I wasn't really aware of what's going on. I didn't see the well-off media video that came out yesterday, but I got up this morning, was looking through some of my news and the people that I watch that cover a lot of this stuff. And, you know, there was a lot of stuff about Deion Sanders, and there was a lot of speculation about what was going to happen today. He had a press conference scheduled today with his medical team, and they were going to go up there and talk about what's happened the last couple of months. Obviously, for the last couple of months throughout the summer and some of the off-season stuff, he was away from the team. And, you know, they kept it under wraps. He had obviously had some, everybody knew he had some medical problems in the past with, you know, circulation and stuff like that and blood clots and stuff. So this leave of absence happened out of nowhere. And, you know, they kept it really under wraps what was going on with him. He was just away from the team, taking care of whatever problems he had going on. That's how we were told. We knew we had something health-wise going on. I just didn't know what. And so this press conference today, going into it, a lot of people were wondering, some of the well-off media stuff that was put out there, kind of giving hints at what was going on leading up to today. You know, you heard a video of Deion saying, the one video back in May, he's sitting there in a hospital bed, or sitting there getting ready to in a hospital, and he's talking about how he had to make a will. And, you know, you hear all these different things, and people start to speculate what's going to happen today. Like, you start to get the idea that something serious happened. You know what I mean? You kind of got that vibe. And you heard speculation. People were wondering, well, he's going to come out there and announce his retirement today. Like, what's going on? Like, this seems pretty serious. And, you know, just by what they were putting out there. And so Deion goes up there and immediately, because I love Deion's charisma, obviously, he goes up there and immediately just, you know, shoots down any retirement talks or any of that. He said that was all just a bunch of, you don't know where that came from. That's speculation. So, he shut that down immediately, but they did give an update 1 minute into the press conference about what he actually went through. And it turns out Deion actually had bladder cancer. He was diagnosed with and had to get it surgically removed, and it was a whole thing. And so here's them breaking down his medical team, breaking down what happened actually to Deion and how he overcame it. And so here's the video from today.
No, Coach has his other health issues, his vascular stuff. So every year, Coach goes for a CT scan of his vascular pattern to make sure, you know, the blood clots are away. So with this scan, everything turned out really great from the vascular side. About 2 weeks later, we get a text from his primary care doctor that said, I need to talk to you and Coach. We need to refer you guys to a urologist. So about 3 days later, we go see a urologist. They go in for a quick procedure. The urologist told us, hey, within 10 minutes, I can tell you guys if he's going to need another procedure or if we just need to do these follow-up appointments. And the doctor told us, okay, you guys are going to need another procedure. I'm going to refer you to my colleague, Dr. Kurkasia. But at this point, you have a bladder tumor. And from there, we'll go get it removed. And then Dr. Kurkasia, it was, go ahead.
Yeah, so we proceeded with removal of the bladder tumor. It showed a very aggressive
Let's go backwards because you guys gave me options that scared me to death.
Oh, well, once we knew.
We'll get there. I'll get there.
Okay, sorry.
We removed the tumor. It was very high grade, invading through the bladder wall, not into the muscle layer, something we call very high risk non-muscle invasive bladder cancer. So we did discuss options. We discussed some options of treatment in the bladder, and we discussed bladder removal as well. Given his commitments to his family and to the team, elected to undergo a bladder removal. We performed a full robot-assisted laparoscopic bladder removal and creation of a new bladder. And I am pleased to report that the results from the surgery are that he is cured from the cancer.
Give it a clap. It's okay.
And so that was them there breaking down what happened to Deion. And actually, here they were pretty serious stuff. Obviously diagnosed with bladder cancer. He had the option to either go through chemo, I believe it was, and go through that throughout the season. But he wanted to get it removed and wanted to get it over with. And so he had to remove his bladder and, had to create a new one. I believe it was intestines. So some pretty serious stuff, obviously, some pretty crazy stuff. But I think what Deion showed by his decision, in my opinion, what I heard my man Matt McChesney, who I'm a fan of today's 0 to 60 podcast, covers Colorado football out there. Yeah, I think like they explained in their show today, this Deion was really wanted to get back out there and coach this year. He loves coaching. Coaching is his passion. He's really invested into Colorado. This is year 3 now in Colorado. This first year without obviously his sons and Travis Hunter. I think they put a lot into this team they created this year. Getting the kid from Liberty, the quarterback, and all that. He just loves coaching and be around the guys, and you can tell it's what he loves to do. And so, he instead of trying to miss, I think if he'd have went the other route, he possibly would have missed more time during the season. I think he took this route because he wanted to get on there, back on the field and coach as soon as he could. And I think that's says a lot about him for his commitment and passion to helping these young men. Develop and coaching and being around them and helping people reach their goals. And a lot of these guys actually, obviously want to reach the NFL and stuff like that. He's put together a great staff with former players that can help do that with a lot of knowledge and stuff. So kudos to him on that, and I obviously all glory to God that he overcame the cancer and that he's cancer free now. So, that's great. As well. I know he's still going to have some challenges he's going through. I know he said he's got some stuff he's going through right now with the change in his body. He has to, use the bathroom a lot and love to have a porta potty on the sideline during the season, I guess, on some of the games because he'll have to, frequently have to go to the bathroom. So it'll still be a challenge for him, but I think it's a great testimony. And he actually, the way I got to give credit to who, his surrounding circle for keeping everything tight knit because that never leaked out at all. I mean, none of the players knew. I don't know. It's like really anybody knew. Only very, very tight circle. So I don't think his sons even knew. They said Shiloh and Shedeur. Obviously, Bucky knew. His oldest son, well off media, Deion Jr. He knew, but because he's there. But not many people really knew. So very, very small amount. So, I commend him the way he went about it. Not keeping the team or anybody up in worried or anything, and they still went through their normal offseason program stuff and get ready for the season. And I think this today probably will motivate a team, obviously, to see their coach go through that and still make the decision to come back and want to be there for them, to be around them. He kept saying that. And the next part of what I got today from Deion, to me, was my favorite part of everything he said. Absolutely, the best part was him right there saying he's cancer free. But right after that, though, my favorite part of what he said today was this part here. Deion's somebody who's always expressed his faith. I think Deion, if you know a lot of his life and his story, he's had an up and down. I don't say up and down, but when I say up and down, is what he said before about his life testimony. Early on in his career, in his life, he was a guy that was, had a lot of the money and the fame and the women and everything. And he's talking about incidents where, he just felt like he was low and empty and really away from the Lord, and then how God led him, brought him closer to him and his relationship with the Lord. And, he's kind of had like a roller coaster along the way, but then he made it to the point where, he accepted Christ as his Lord and Savior, and he professes God, and he's not shy of that, and he shares a lot of it. And I think today, Deion, some people criticize Deion for doing this press conference today. I loved it. I thought it was great that he shared it, because I think it's great, obviously, to tell everybody the testimony and obviously give an update where he's been, but also it was bigger than football. It was bigger than Deion. It was really a message for all of us today, and it was a great reminder for myself as well. I can disagree with somebody. And there's people out there today, I'm sure too, who have maybe criticized Deion, in some people's eyes a little too harshly, since he's taken over Colorado and all that. But I think today made everybody really pause, and made Deion pause, and what he's going to share here on the next part I'm about to play, about how, not only how great God is, but also how a lot of times we take things for granted. And we try to always seek out more. We chase all the things in life, especially the society we live in. We feel like we're never, the peer pressure, social media, you feel like you always got to have more. It's never enough. And the goalpost always moves. And I feel like what Deion shared today was, this message here is just grateful just to be able to, go fish it again. And I mean, this is a guy who's had it all, superstar, one of the greatest players of all time. And, to see him up here vulnerable in this moment, to me, I think was just an awesome thing. I'm so grateful that he shared this, because I think it was a real inspiration for a lot of people. And this is incredible here. So take a listen.
So quickly, very
Yeah.
quickly.
Like blood in urine. It just looked bad, and I'm fishing with 2 bags. I'm trying to make life happen, and couldn't come around my team. And I wanted to be here with my team. I wanted to see the new talent that we brought in. I wanted to see them work, see them train, coach them. And I couldn't, but slowly but surely I built myself back up to where I'm able, I'm strong, I'm ready. I'm still probably about 12 pounds down. I'm gonna get that right. I'm gonna fill these overalls up like no other. But it has been a tremendous journey, and I'm truly thankful that God is so good. God is so good. You have no idea. You have no idea how good God has been for me to be here. You have no idea. Thank you. Thank you both for everything. Let me add this for all you people that get upset when I start talking about the Lord. I never once through this whole journey said, God, why me? Because I would have to say, God, why being you sitting up here in front of these wonderful people? Why you give me the position of the head football coach of the prestigious university? Why you allow me to father 5 wonderful kids? Why you give me these relationships with these wonderful people? Why me, Lord? Did I have some of the things that I have? I can never say that. I can never say the other side, because I'm going to have to ask that. I said, Lord, whatever it is that you're doing, let me know what it is so I could expedite the process. Because I know you got me. I've seen you have my back. I've seen you there in the midst of storms when nobody knew I was going through hell. I've seen you guide me and bring me through. Lord, I would never say why me, but let me know what I need to do so that I can help. And there's some people out there right now dealing with the same issue, affected by that C word that we usually, when we hear that word, is normally a life sentence attached to it. But not this time. But not this time. Because God got me. And I don't take it for granted. I don't want you to take it for granted. Anybody out there, I don't want anybody to take it for granted, because it's real. Everybody in this room, I guarantee you, have been affected by that C word.
And so I love everything he said there. I mean, it was a very powerful statement there from Deion Sanders. I'm gonna break it down and why I can relate to it. How it really helped me today to hear that. It was a refreshment for me to hear that as well. And hopefully, I think it's a refresher for you as well, for all of us. And you saw the part there we got emotional saying how God is so good. You know what I mean? I think him just being able to sit up there today and have that type of be in that moment to share that testimony was probably surreal. Yeah, I'm sure along the way we're human people. Humans, we go through anxiety, we go through doubt, we go through depression, especially through hardships and hard times. And I feel like I'm sure Dion had many moments. I mean, when you're going to make a will, you know what I mean. You're wondering back at that time in May, like, I hope one day I can just even go home again to my house. I hope I can go back and just show up at the facility again, just to see the guys. I'm sure he had doubts. He's human, like all of us. We all had doubts, and but he the mindset though that he had was a great testimony of. He didn't say why me, God, I have all these great things in my life, but why did you give me this cancer? Why am I going through these health problems? He just said, Lord, like he said, Lord, what do you want me to do? What's your plan in this? How do you? And almost what he's saying is it was like an act of surrender. And God, what's your plan for all this? What's your will? What do you want me to do right now in the state I'm in until you change it? And I'm going to put all my faith and trust in you. And that's why he said that. I'm trusted in you, Lord, because I know I've seen you before take care of me. I know you'll take care of this. This is going to be another testimony. And I think, you're going to make me stronger from this. I mean, and sometimes in life, God allows things that we don't understand, and I am a Christian. I accept Christ my heart as a personal Lord and Savior when I was younger. And I've preached that on the show all the time. And obviously we talk about sports and stuff, but the main purpose of this channel is the stuff I'm talking about right now. And so that's why this meant something to me today to come up here and talk about this. And I really appreciate Deion again for sharing this stuff publicly today. Maybe I wore the shade today for Deion too. So, but I think it related to me a lot today because everybody knows, if you know my story, people that have really followed my channel, go watch my first video I ever put out on this channel. And that first video was the hardest thing I ever did in my life in terms of one single act. It was me sharing my testimony after being in hiatus from everybody in life, not just publicly, but in life, privately, even for 7 years. And I shared where I've been and my journey of overcoming it. Severe anxiety and health anxiety and agoraphobia and panic. And, I had moments in that 7-year span where I could barely leave my house, go a block away from my house. And, I had a lot of doubt in that time. I really doubted if I would ever see, the city of Cleveland again, which is only 25, 30 minutes from me. I mean, I doubted if I'd be able to go to do the certain family functions again, go to birthday parties again, go do the things I want to do. Can I go have a life one day of when I get older, of having a family and, being able to get back around sports? I can understand, Deion's obviously a former athlete. When this all started with me, I'm 25 now. This started my life when I was 14, 15 years old. And by the time I got to my sophomore year of high school, 1 month in, I had to leave school abruptly because of it. And I wasn't able to finish school in person. I had to go online. So I missed out on a lot of things in high school. I didn't go to college like a lot of people. And so, a lot of those years, and this is written, I did an article with Voyage magazine. Shout out to Voyage. They reached out to me last year, and we did the article in the spring. And you can go look at my link down below. You can read it more about, I get more in depth about my testimony if you're interested. And a lot of that time, I shared what I was going through at that time, how I can only leave my house in certain ways. And, it was a lot. Every day was a grind. Every day was getting over the next, every day was an obstacle. And then once I got over that day, it was getting over the next day. It was like a day-to-day thing. And, it wasn't up until I got to a point where, I was trying to do everything on my own, and this was summer of 2021. I was trying to do everything on my own. I was trying to heal myself from my anxiety. I was listening to all these videos online, but I was trying to control everything still. And I was trying to just, forget about everything that happened and just try to do it all on my own. But a lot of my thinking was too singular. It was too selfish. It was too more about me trying to heal me and me worried about me and me kind of being caught up in all the pain I was feeling at that time and kind of playing the victim card a little bit. I got caught up in that mentally. And, I got to the point where I kind of crashed, I mean? I got a little better. And so this was 2021 was, 6 years and 20 after I had to leave school. And it was this up and down roller coaster. And I was doing a little better, but I wasn't. Then I crashed again. I went down in a hole again, and my anxiety got worse. And this time I had to learn. This is where I learned what surrender was. And I had to get to a point where I said, you know what? I can't. I remember there was an incident I went to. I was trying to go to my cousin's birthday party at a restaurant, and I had to get up and leave in the middle of dinner, bro, because I was starting to have anxiety so bad. And I just left. And I remember I felt so embarrassed. I felt so bad. And I also felt just so like, upset because I couldn't sit there and enjoy time with my family. And it was only a place a mile away from my house, even that, half mile. Wasn't even that far from my house. And, and it was all just the years of me trying to hide things and keep things inside and forget, and all the pain and stuff and the trauma I went through. I wasn't addressing it. I was trying to just stuff it aside and force my own healing and, do it my way. And, and you listen to other people's voices, but I wasn't listening to the voice. And I got to that point where after that incident, where I said, you know what? I got to get some real help. I got to surrender. I have to let go of control and let somebody else then help me and let God lead me there first. And that's where I went to seek counseling. And then that's where I started to, once I started working with a counselor in September 21, that led me all the way to April 2022 when I did that first episode and I shared my testimony. And that's where I really started to take off. Once I overcame that, that was the first step of Joseph coming back to being Joseph again. But also that was the first time in my life where I really truly surrendered to the Lord and let it all go to him. And he returned the favor, you know what I mean? And my life since has been so much better. I could sit up here 3.5 years later and say, I've overcome all those things. And my life is restoring now and rehealing and going back to normal. And it's been great. Last year has been the best year of my life in 11 years. And so I love everything Deion said there, though, about going back to what Deion said about surrendering, basically, and letting go and saying, Lord, whatever, you're not my will, but thy will be done. And I can attest to that because I went through it. And, I still go through things now where I get fearful or I get that old anxiety shows up, you know what I mean? Or, I go through a lot of things now in my personal life, because of the experience I went through. I had a lot of things that I wasn't able to do during those years, you know what I mean? And, one of the things now I haven't really opened up publicly. I've been kind of kept it private between me and some of my friends, but Deion's inspired me to share it today. So shout out to you, Deion, if you see this ever. But one of the things I'm going through battling now is somebody who's single at 25. Because of the stuff I went through. Obviously, dating was not, and being in a relationship was not something that was ideal during those years because I wouldn't be able to. And it wasn't. To be honest with you, it was the last thing on my mind. But as I've gotten older and I've overcome those things and I've grown more, and I've, last couple of years, a lot of that desire has grown more, right? And I had an incident, I'd say a couple of years ago. I went through something a couple of years ago where I thought something was heading in that direction, and it ended up being the complete opposite, and I felt let down and defeated. And that's been a battle for me spiritually to really accept that at times. And I've had to, God's really grown me through that though. And I really had to let go and lean on God and his trust in his discernment and his goodness, that he knows what's best and that he has something better for me, and that he knew more than I did, clearly, in that situation. And I had to let go, but it all seemed like it lined up. Everything seemed so good. Right? Everything seemed like it was real and it was meant to be, and everything just seemed like it just seemed like so perfect. But then at the end of the day, though, it really wasn't. And I feel like a lot of times, and I think like what Deion was saying there, God, I see all these great things in my life. And like, look, I'm coaching at Colorado, a big time university. I'm at a Power 5 school. My sons are in the NFL. They just got drafted. My other son's got a hell of a media company. I'm doing all these great things. I got a grandkid. I got a family, all these wonderful people. My life's so great, but I got this one thing, right? And this one thing happened. And obviously, our circumstances were different, but mine was like, man, everything just seemed so wonderful. Everything was going good. This happened shortly after I started my show, and everything was, I'd say that once I started my show, those first couple, 3-4 months was really, it was, I remember 3 years ago around this time, that's where I was really rolling, and the stuff and that started happening in my life. And I was like, wow, things are really rolling. But then it ended up, everything seemed like it was going great. And then all of a sudden something happened. where I felt let down. And I remember that moment. Whenever you're let down or something, everything's going great. You're kind of like, man, God, why did this happen? Why did you let this happen? But I had to learn probably slower than maybe Deion did, because Deion's a lot older than me. He has a little more life experience. But I learned about probably a year and a half ago that same thing, where I had to learn to, you know what? I'm not going to sit around and say why me or play the victim. I just got to trust that God spared me from trouble, and that God knows what's best for me, and that God will take care of me. He'll deliver me, and he'll bring me all the way through. And even now until today, going back to I'm just sharing an example, something I struggle with at times is being single. You're hopeful that one day you find somebody as a Christian, but today's climate doesn't really reflect of a lot of hopefulness. You look out there in the real world, everything's like McDonald's. I mean, it's fast food. It's easy. It's convenient. You can settle for it, but it's not good for you. You're looking for something that's healthy and organic and whole. Sometimes you got to wait for God, and you have to wait for God, and you have to let Him orchestrate that, because He's in control of that. And so you have to remain faithful, and you have to stay focused on Him, so you don't get off track or get sidetracked or get depressed or anything. And I'm sure it sounds like Deion went through a similar thing in this process here, where he just kept stay focused on the Lord, stay focused on the Lord, stay focused on, and eventually he kept going and going and going, and eventually he overcame the cancer. And look at him now; he's back today, and he's back on that podium. And when he runs out there for that first game, I don't know who they play, but their first game this fall, that's probably gonna be an incredible moment to see him running back on that field again. And so, and I can attest to that. My life since the incident I was sharing with me, my life's actually been a lot better since. It's been a lot freer. I've been actually to go do things again, hang out with my friends, and reconnect, and my life's a whole completely different now. And I'm never going back to where I was again. Thank God. All glory. Thank you, God, for not letting me go back to that point ever again. And so, but Deion Sanders, I love what he said there, how God is so good, because I can attest to that as well, how God is so good. And that just having that mindset, it's so refreshing. It's freeing. It's very peaceful. And, you can lean on all the things in the world. You can have everything in the world, but it won't satisfy you. You can try to buy everything you want, or try to force everything you want. I think a lot of people in society do that nowadays. They try to buy, force, and try to manipulate everything they want to go their way, and then try to sprinkle God on top of it. But is that really real? No, it's not. It's not till you have to get in a situation where you have no control, where you have to let go. That's where you really learn how good God is. And that's how you see God's goodness unfold after, And so incredible testimony by Deion Sanders. Incredible. And, what's great about all this too, and I'm personally about to bring up, I'm sure a lot of Deion supporters don't like him, but I've got to talk to him before in the past and agree with a lot of stuff that he shares. And that's Jason Whitlock. And I know some people, and you hear that name, you're Deion people, you don't like that. But here's what I'll say to you guys. Before you click out of here right now, or you hear that name, or you're triggered by the name, this is what Deion's testimony did today that was so amazing. How somebody who has criticized Deion and has been on the opposite spectrum of Deion, the last couple of years since he's been in Colorado. I thought this statement today from Jason was awesome. And I thought it was it just shows how great what Deion said, how God is so good. It shows this is another example of how two people who maybe haven't been seeing eye to eye, or, the last couple of years had some, I don't know if you'd say public beef. I don't think, because Deion doesn't respond, but you guys know what I'm talking about. You guys, if you follow Deion, you're aware of what Jason's talking about on his show, and you guys know what I'm talking about. So, but again, I think this is another great example of how God takes somebody who's criticized Deion heavily, right? I mean, I'm sure maybe Deion has been happy with the times, with some of the criticisms, but whether valid or not, but again, this situation, and you can look at the comment right there. It says right there from Jamie Winborn. I'm not sure who that is, but they said, I haven't agreed with some of the posts you've had, but this one is amazing. Life is short, no time to enjoy. I'm a cancer survivor living with J Pouch daily, and I'll tell you, he never he will never be the same again. Great message. Put the guns down. Enjoy your family while you're here. Classy post, Jason. A lot of people who are Deion supporters who haven't really been a fan of Jason because of some of the criticisms he's had of Deion have actually said, hey, salute to you. This is awesome. And again, my whole point with sharing this, it's a great message that Jason shares, but also look how God can take two people maybe who have had different opinions and it's been public, and how you could take a situation and make them come back as one in a way and share a message that reflects him, and how we could all really just, at the end of the day, when it all comes down to it, nothing's more important than God and glorifying him, and how we can all, if we disagree, even if we disagree on certain things, we all can come together as one and help people and inspire people and share a great message that glorifies him. So here's Jason's message.
The news about Deion Sanders makes me want to just remind you, young people, you don't want to live a life filled with regrets. Deion announced today that he's been dealing with bladder cancer, and here's Deion, one of the greatest athletes of all time, and he's into his golden years, and they're not as golden as they should be because his health is suffering from the circulation problems in his legs to now bladder cancer. I've got nothing but sympathy and empathy and prayers for Deion Sanders because, Deion and I are the same age, and this getting old thing is for the birds. We all wish we were the young people we were in our 20s and 30s, and what you don't want to do is get to my age and Deion's age and have a bunch of regrets of what, oh man, I should have done this, I should have done that. And I certainly got some regrets, some real regrets that I talk about on my show constantly. Love the fact that Deion has made the most with his two boys in his life. Good luck to Deion and the Colorado Buffaloes this season.
And so shout out to Jason there. Great post, brother. Awesome. I mean, I love the message you shared there, about how, you don't want to, this is a great example of not wanting to look back one day. I'm 25. He's talking to people like to me at 25 and to you, people around my age group, people are watching like Humble, our age group, brother. How we don't want to live with regret, and how this is a great example to live your life to the fullest, because anything can happen at any moment. Nothing's ever guaranteed in life. And also, I think it's also another example too, just what Jason's kind of saying there too is, staying focused on the Lord and living for the Lord and living out his will. I think, and living a life, Christ-filled life, fulfilling, that's the best fulfillment you can get. And, I think it's another example of being content with what you have. I think a lot of people in our society, like I said earlier, there's so much peer pressure in society and social media. And if you sit and swipe on TikTok all day, there's some good things on there, but a lot of stuff you see is it's really designed to make you feel like you're not enough, to make you feel like you don't have enough, that you have to live this certain life that they portray on there, that if you don't live this life, then, at this age, even everything's got a date, but God doesn't live by our dates. God doesn't live by what we think or what we think we need to have. And God doesn't live by those worldly standards. God has his own, each standards for us as believers, but also just for everybody. And also each person has their own story and testimony. Jason Whitlock's life is different from mine. My life's different from Jason Whitlock's. His life's different from Deion Sanders, and vice versa. And same with me. Our everybody's different. And so once you accept who you really are and what plan God has for you, wherever you are in your life, like Deion was saying, basically surrender. That's when you really that's where you find true fulfillment. And that's where you can live a life of, doesn't mean you're perfect or anything, or everything's just, life's just flawless and all that. No, but you have a peace that helps you pass through, but also there's no greater fulfillment than that in life. And I think Jason's a testimony. I think Deion's a testimony of that, obviously, today. And you can look to my life even and go read more about that. My life at 25 isn't probably the same as your typical 25-year-old story. You know what I mean? So, but I'm proud of that. I'm proud that God chose me for I'm honored that God chose me to have such a story that's helped people, and I don't seek that, but people have told me how much it's helped them, and I'm honored by that, and I thank God that He chose me for that. And it gives me, I look back at, because I was in that state for a while too, of, being bitter and angry and, God, why did you let this happen? And why did I not get to go through things in high school? Why did this stuff happen? And blah, 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 blah. Why has this happened yet in my life? But then I look back at all the great things that have happened, though. And it actually happened during that time span and how I grew and how God really used me to help a lot of people in my family and really saved my family in a lot of ways, especially back at that time when I was 15, where we were. I mean, I wouldn't, it's like if everything could have went the way I wanted it to go, how I thought it should have went, but that trade-off will not even compare to, it would have been a lot worse and have been a disaster compared to where God brought me now. The trade-off that God had was so much better, so much more rewarding, and still is, and will continue to be as my life and story unfolds. You know what I mean? And you can too. You know what I mean? It's an act of surrender and letting go. And I think today, Deion Sanders and that testimony was a great example of that, and it really, was a good reminder for me to kind of pause and look around and kind of be grateful for where I'm at now. You got, like I said, if people know my story, even when I started the show 2 years ago, even, I was in a much different state than where I'm at now. But by the grace of God, I made it this far. There's a lot of people that went through what I went through, especially at that age, that don't make it out of it. So, and I think about that a lot, and only by the grace of God did He bring me out of that state. And so, it's kind of like the story of the airplane. Listen to the Voice by David Gibbs. He was on a little small private-owned plane flying in Alaska, and the pilot passed out in the plane, and two guys him and another gentleman were up in the plane, and they didn't know how to fly planes. And they got on the radio and signaled to the air traffic tower, and the person in the tower and on the radio said, don't look at what's going on outside. They were flying through even like dark clouds and a storm. Even it was starting to rain. It was getting rough, right? And the person said, just listen to the voice. Listen to the voice, and I'll lead you back where you need to home. I'll lead you to the base. Lead you to the airport where you can land. And he had to listen to that voice. And he knew if I didn't listen to that voice, within a matter of minutes or seconds, I would crash. I would die. And so he had to listen to that voice and let go. And along the way, there was other pilots hearing what was going on. They said, well, hey, brother, we're praying for you. You're going to make it. You're going to make it. Right. And he had to keep listening to that voice. And eventually he landed. And in fact, he landed 7 times and it was over. It's the same thing. Like I look at my life, you look at Deion's testimony, I think about that all the time. What I went through, I was going through that storm, and I could have crashed, but by the grace of God, only He carried me through. And that says He has a plan and will for me, but it's for all of us. He has a plan and will for you too. And He has a plan and will for Deion Sanders. He has a plan and will for JC. He has a plan and will for a lot of people, for everybody. He has a plan and will, not just a lot of people, everybody. And so, incredible testimony. And one thing I'm going to end on this topic I'm going to end with the Shedeur Sanders stuff, but I'm not going to say any more on this. I'm going to turn on this sermon from Dr. Charles Stanley. It's just a 4-minute clip here of talking about the God's, Deion said God is so good and God's goodness. And I just wanted to add a little more context today. So here's Reverend Stanley and Dr. Stanley, excuse me, on God. You see the expression of God's goodness. Here's the clip.
He desires to express that goodness to all of us in all kinds of different ways. And so somebody says, well, I do understand that, but one of the things that's always bothered me is that I see God being good to this person, that person, the other person, and I don't think He's very good to me. Now, what you're saying is that you're looking at the ways in which God expresses His goodness to this group of people, that person, the other person, and He has to express His goodness to you in the same way, and so therefore, it looks like you've come up short. Well, you haven't come up short. In other words, God, listen, God isn't good and less good. He doesn't love more and love less. God is just good by his nature. It's his very character to be good. And so he says he's good to all. Now, there are some particular requirements, for example, that God makes for us. And I want you to turn, if you will, let's look at Psalm 84 for just a moment. Go back to Psalm 84 and look to see what he says in this passage, because God is good, no question about that. But there are some requirements for us if God is to express the fullness of his goodness toward us. And verse 11 says, "For the Lord God is a sun and a shield. The Lord gives grace and glory. No good thing does he withhold," listen, "from those who walk uprightly, straight, obey God." Go back, if you will, to Psalm 34 for a moment. Psalm 34, and listen to what he says in this passage of Scripture. He says in verse 8, "Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. How blessed is the man who takes refuge in him. Fear the Lord, you his saints." For to those who fear him, there is no want. To fear God is to obey him. So he says, God doesn't withhold any of his goodness to those who walk uprightly, those who obey him, those who walk in his will. He says, God pours out his goodness. And does he not say in Romans 8:28, "For God is working everything for good to those who love him and to those who are called according to his purpose"? And so the truth is that God is being good to us. And if we want the fullness of God's goodness, we walk uprightly. We want the fullness of God's goodness, we obey him. And so God has a pathway of goodness. And that pathway requires that we walk obediently before him, submissive to him, yielded to him. And on that pathway, all the goodness of God that he has provided for us is available to us. If I get off the path, what I'm doing is I'm saying, I think there's a better way than God's way. I think there's something good over here that God is keeping me from. There's something good that God's depriving me of. So I'm getting off of what seems to be his will, because I think there's something good over here. That's exactly what Adam and Eve did. And so the pathway of goodness is the pathway of obedience and uprightness before Almighty God. Now, when we think of the goodness of God, and I have emphasized those things because I want to go in an entirely different direction at this point. Usually we think if God is good, he will give you a new car, new house, new dress, new suit, new this, new education, more this, more that. In other words, all this is God's goodness. I mean, he help you lose weight, he help you gain weight, he help you look better, he get you. In other words, if God's good, all this is God's goodness. You know what? I wouldn't question, well, that's good, not because every good thing that comes our way is from God. It is good. What I want to do is I want to talk about something that are expressions of God's goodness that are absolutely, totally beyond my help or my strength or yours to do anything about whatsoever. The goodness of God is expressed in more ways than material and physical things. Listen, the best of God's goodness is expressed in ways that only God could express it. They're gifts of his goodness that could only be from Almighty God. No amount of manipulation, no amount of anything that you and I could possibly do would ever bring this about. And so I wanted you to think.
Awesome stuff there from Reverend Stanley. Again, that sermon, if you want to check out the full sermon, I highly recommend it. It's called Expression of God's Goodness by Dr. Charles Stanley. And so awesome stuff today. Shout out to Deion Sanders again. Prayers to Deion Sanders. Obviously, he continues in his healing, him and his family. And awesome testimony today. And prayers up to you, Deion, and God bless you, brother. And thank you for sharing that today. That was awesome. So, yeah. And so I'm in today's show talking about Deion Sanders' his son, Shedeur Sanders. I don't know why my lighting's like that. It's all orange all of a sudden. Let's see if I can reboot this. I don't know. But sometimes it does this. I got this new camera. It's a great camera, but sometimes it just likes to do this like weird orange thing. I mean, it does this stuff. If wants to know what this is, knows what this is, let me know in the comments. And I look all red. But I'm muted. Okay, there we go. We'll just go like this. So Shedeur Sanders today, though, and you don't even see me anyways. I'm gonna put this on the screen because Shedeur Sanders today, man, he had an unbelievable day. And I don't know if he just had an unbelievable day today. I don't know if he was inspired, maybe probably what I know he is inspired by his father, but he went out there today and just played his best ball so far in practice as a Cleveland Brown. I think he went 9 for 9. I think it was 2 touchdowns, I believe, maybe 3. He had a great last 2 days before the weekend. Over the weekend, I think it was Friday and Saturday they practiced. So Friday and Saturday he had really good days. He started off the camp a little rough, which is fine. He's a rookie. The first day was not great. Second day he bounced back, got a little rhythm, got a little more stable, and ever since then he's really just taken off. And now with Kenny Pickett out due to a hamstring, this quarterback battle is really wide open now. Joe Flacco, I think, is still presumably the favorite to. I think Zach Jackson put out a report today. Who has good insight. Shout out to him from The Athletic. That I think it's about 75% sure right now that Joe Flacco will be the starter, mainly because obviously the experience. He was here 2 years ago. I think Stefanski's the most comfortable with him right now, naturally, right? But Shedeur Sanders, though, he is really the last 2-3 practices, especially today, is really coming into a zone and really coming into a rhythm. And this pass here today, he threw in the back of the end zone. I mean, he threw that ball. We saw the back end view of that on social media as well. He threw that ball only where that receiver could catch it. And he steps up in the pocket. That's what I liked about him in college, his pocket awareness. He was always really good in the pocket. He looked like a natural pocket quarterback. Obviously worked with Tom Brady and a lot of great guys, obviously because of his father and, had great coaching growing up and stuff. And so, I think the more comfortable he gets, the better he's going to be. I think he's just learning the playbook still, learning, just, the NFL game's a lot different from college. It's the pros, but he's made for it. One thing he has is supreme confidence. And even with all the stuff going on with his dad, I mean, to come out here today and play like that, I mean, that's incredible. You could say it's against who, I mean, here, he went out there with 9 for 9, and some of the throws he made today, and it's just this kid's confidence is my favorite thing about him. He's got supreme confidence, and that's why I don't ever doubt him because I'm like, you give him a shot, he can really do something great with it because of just how confident he is. He speaks confidently. I loved his response to the media over the weekend, how he said, listen, I'm not going to get caught up in if I'm taking first team reps or not. I can't control that. All I can control is the opportunities I have. And he's making the most of them. And that mindset is showing in his performance right now. Just the confidence and just the freeness, and really, like we talked about earlier, surrender. He just surrendered to wherever situation I'm in, God. I'm sure part of him was like, man, I wish I was picked in I should have been taken in the first round. I should be getting teams first reps of the first team, but this is where you got me. Got to make the best of what I got. And he's out there doing that. And so, again, I'm still, weary if they'll give him a fair shot to actually start week 1. I don't think he will. But I don't know if he keeps playing like this, though. And Flacco, it's kind of even neck and neck with him and Flacco maybe looks a little old. You may have to give him the nod. Also, you have Dillon Gabriel in this mix as well. And Gabriel has surprised a lot of people. He surprised me. He's played a lot better than I anticipated. And I think a lot of people, and he's very talented and very smart kid. He's done really well in the media sessions as well. He's a very good player. He's very talented. I think the height, like I said, is still going to be a question mark for him. But, ultimately it's going to come down to, I've covered the Browns for 3 years now. And, I've done a lot of deep dive into the organization and the structure and before any of these guys were here. And so, I think Jimmy Haslam was the one that really wanted Shedeur more than anybody. Even after they took Dillon Gabriel, why they still took Shedeur, I think Jimmy Haslam. I think Kevin Stefanski as well. I think the way Kevin spoke about him in that draft process and his connection with Shermer, I think Kevin and Haslam really liked him a lot. I think that was their guy all along. I think, and this is speculation on my part, but I think Dillon Gabriel was a lot more of that front office with Paul DePodesta and Andrew Berry. I think the GM, I think that was more of their pick. And so that's why I said all along, I think when you hear the reports about the Arch Manning stuff and, that Haslam's got his eyes set on Arch Manning, that they all have the kind of the same agent with Jimmy Sexton. Well, Jimmy Sexton is Kevin Stefanski, the head coach of the Browns. That's his agent too. So I don't think Kevin's going anywhere. I think Kevin's trying to get, I think he's now, he hopefully gets the full out time to do what he really wants to do, which he always hasn't had that in Cleveland. I think maybe, who knows, he may surprise people this year. I think if he just has that, I think there's a good shot Shedeur gets out there because I think Kevin would trust Shedeur if he feels like he's good, if he's ready enough to play. It's not a question if he's good enough. It's is he ready enough? He's a rookie, so you don't want to throw guys out too early to the Lions. Then you know what I mean. It's you want to make sure they're ready, and so I think that's why he may lean more on Flacco to start week 1 just because of that extra confidence he has in his experience. Because Shedeur hasn't had that experience yet because he's a rookie, which is fine. But Dillon Gabriel, though, I think the only way Dillon Gabriel hits the field is if that front office forces it. And a reason why I've said on my show the other week, show I did over the weekend that a lot of people reacted to, is because that front office, to me, Andrew Berry is on the hot seat. And I feel like his way of justifying him staying is if Dillon Gabriel goes out there as at the next Bo Nix. But the way Shedeur's playing right now at camp, and if he keeps this up, that's really going to throw a wrench in all that. And I think you might see a scenario where ownership says, you know what? Yeah, I'm eyeing Arch Manning next year, but I wouldn't. If Shedeur hits, then that's great too, because now I can use those picks somewhere else. And I think that's what owners. Jimmy Haslam's always gone for the big splash, right? When Colin Cowherd did that report the other day about the Nick Saban, Arch Manning, one of the things he said in there was accurate in terms of Jimmy Haslam likes the headlines. He likes to always go for the splash. He drafted Johnny Manziel. He took Baker Mayfield. All those guys were polarizing guys that people want. They were must-see TV. People always wanted to see them play. Like there's always something around those guys, right? He then goes out and gets Deshaun Watson and overpays and forces that trade to get Deshaun Watson, right? And then he goes out and he brings in Shedeur Sanders, who has a huge following before he even comes into the league. He has the #1 jersey sales and all rookies already. And so he's always going for the splash. Like if Arch Manning, that's a splash name, obviously, because of the last name. And, we all know that. So Sanders obviously is too. So I think he's hoping if he can, I think Haslam if Shedeur keeps this up, I think Haslam's going to make it known, here, I want Shedeur Sanders out there playing, starting. I want to see what this kid can do this year because he might be our guy. And if he is our guy, then we can move off that Arch Manning plan next year and use those picks to build a team around him. And now you're really rolling. Now you can rebuild a lot faster that way rather than that extra year if you had to go that route and take a quarterback in next year's draft. So I think Stefanski's okay with it as well. I think Stefanski is going to try to develop Shedeur very slowly. I think that's the process we've seen here, which I've said all along. Even back in the spring when he wasn't getting those reps that people are, going crazy about, I said, look, I think he's just, slowly developing him off to the side. I think Kevin has a plan for Shedeur. I think ownership likes Shedeur. I think they want to see what he can do. I think the Dillon Gabriel side of it was more from the front office. I think that's their plan. And I think that's why, even last week at the beginning of camp, when you heard Shedeur was throwing equipment staff guys, when I heard that, I was kind of like, well, that's not a good sign. Not because of him, because I just felt like he wasn't getting a fair shot. You're seeing Gabriel get all these reps out there. Like, why doesn't Shedeur get these same reps? Shedeur is just talented, more talented, in my opinion, and has a higher upside. Why isn't he getting these opportunities, these reps? And so I think, I don't know why that happened last week. I'm going to think about that more. I don't know if Kevin's got a philosophy with all this that at the end of the day, he already knew what he was going to do all along. And that really it is Flacco and Shedeur, like Mike and I have been saying all along, that's Kevin's guy. And that's probably where ownership likes as well. And so we're going to see. It's going to be an interesting season. It's going to be really interesting to see because I still expect Flacco to start week 1. Unless Shedeur absolutely just shreds it, which he could. I mean, he's shredding it right now. So, we'll see what happens. But the real part is which one of the rookies is going to hit the field first. And I think whatever one goes first, and you heard what I just thought about who took who, why I think head coach and ownership really like Shedeur a lot. And it's not that head coach doesn't like Dillon Gabriel either. I think he does. But I think that front office, they're more analytical based and they're scouting and stuff. It's Paul DePodesta. They're the most ranked by ESPN as the most analytically advanced franchise in all of the NFL. Dillon Gabriel, you wouldn't think with that kind of size that you would take him in this division, really in any team in the NFL. It's a question mark was his size. He's very well talented. He is. If he was 6'2", 6'3", you had no problem taking him in the 3rd round, maybe in the 2nd round. He's that talented. But with the size, it's a question mark. But Dillon Gabriel was a lot of the, he led a lot of the advanced metrics, a lot of those analytics he was high on in this draft class. So it kind of adds up why that front office really liked him, if you know what I mean. So You get what I'm saying? And so I'm going to be real interested to see who comes off that sideline first, who comes off the mat first and goes out there and plays. It's going to be Shedeur or is it going to be Dylan? And I think that'll give us an idea of kind of what the influence is and kind of where the season will unfold. But I think Kevin Stefanski has got a really good plan for Shedeur, and I think he's going to try to do the best he can to help Shedeur succeed this season. Because I think ownership really is invested more in the Shedeur as well. I think, just again, he's always wanted to splash. Shedeur's a splash, and Shedeur, if his upside's the highest out of anybody in that room, and if he goes out there this year and balls out and is the guy moving forward, then they'll be doing high fives and cartwheels, and they got 2 first-round picks next year to build around him. So it's gonna be real fascinating to see what happens. But shout out to Shedeur. I mean, he keep balling like that, brother, and that was fun to watch today. And I'm all for it. I love for Shedeur to be the guy here. We just want our franchise quarterback found in Cleveland, please. So, but yeah, that's the show for today. Love all you guys. Please like, subscribe, share, and all that good stuff. If you like today's show. And yeah, I'll see you the next one. I'm out of here. Go.